Okay, let's get started with 360-degree video. Number one question, what is it? Well, essentially 360-degree video is video in 360 degrees, the same angle as you see the world in real life. So every view is recorded at the same time. That means it's captured using an omnidirectional camera or stitched from images from numerous cameras. So your cameras would be all in a ring and then combined together into one image. The finished video comes out spherical, and it can be viewed on a PC, a phone, or with a VR headset, so it's pretty accessible video. So one way to think about this is the same way you think about a projection of the globe. You have your sphere, which is the globe, and it can be viewed in a couple of different ways to accurately produce that round image on a flat surface. This is the same way that 360-degree footage is recorded, and then when it's viewed, it's reconnected back into that globe-like image. Let's go through a little bit of the history of this type of video. So in 1787, obviously video didn't exist at the time. The English painter Robert Barker coined the term panorama and opened the first cyclorama. So we've probably heard the term panorama before. We know that from the function on our phones, which allows us to take those nice wide panorama images. This is where it comes from. It was a wide-scale painting of a harbor, and people could go into a room and walk around it and experience it as if they were actually in that environment. It was called a cyclorama. Think of the word cycle, so round. And it surrounded people so they could experience this painting in an immersive way. Then in the 1890s, we have the birth of cinema. I won't play this video in the recording here that I'm doing for you, but I will include it so you can watch it on your own. And this video by the Lumiere brothers was called Arrival of a Train. And it just shows a train coming somewhat towards the camera, but allegedly audience members were so shocked and surprised by this that they thought the train was coming into the theater, and they actually got up and ran out in fright. So anything new can be really surprising to people, even though when we watch it now, it's obvious to us that this is a video. And it's not particularly high quality, of course not. It was one of the first films ever captured. Then in 1900, we have the Cinéorama revealed at the Paris Exposition. So this was made up of 10 projectors, and they showed views of a hot air balloon ride from different angles in a circular room. So the viewer sat in the center of this room watching this recorded visual of a hot air balloon ride all around them. However, it was not particularly popular due to the fact that the projectors created a large amount of heat, and there were serious fears of fire, which meant that it never really took off. Allegedly, one of the projector operators actually fainted because of the heat as a result of this. Then in the 1950s, we have Circle Vision 360. So this was utilized at Disney parks. They had a relatively famous video called Fly Over America, which showed different scenes of the US, and I think it might still be available at some Disney parks today. Then in 2007, we get to Google Maps Street View, something that we're all familiar with because obviously it still exists today. So you would see those little cars driving around with the big camera on the top. So that camera is what I was talking about. When you have different images, you can see there's all different lenses around it, capturing all of those different angles and knitting it together into one picture. Then in 2013, we get the first consumer 360-degree camera. It was called BubbleCam, and it was funded through Kickstarter. In 2015, Google Cardboard is released, and 360-degree uploads are enabled on YouTube and Facebook. So in 2015, Google Cardboard is released, and 360-degree uploads are enabled on YouTube and Facebook. So really this means that creation of 360-degree video has been brought out of the professional realm and to the people. You're expected to be able to create it yourself and to consume it at home with something as simple as a piece of cardboard with 2 lenses in it. An example of where this has been done is with a film called Invasion. It was the Emmy winner in 2017 for Outstanding Interactive, and it also won a VR and 360 film competition at the Nashville Film Festival in 2017. So it's not recording of a live event, it's an animated film. So I want you to take a look at that. The description of this is that it's the story of two bunnies dealing with an alien invasion. So have a think, how many bunnies do you see there? Right, only one. So you are supposed to be the second bunny as the viewer. You're experiencing it from the perspective of someone or a cuddly little animal that's actually engaged in this experience. And outside of entertainment, it can also be applied in our working lives. So here's an example of where nurses are being trained to be better communicators. So it's shown that a really high amount of issues in medical settings just come about as a result of poor communication or communication that's not particularly empathetic between nurses and medical practitioners and patients. So in this simulation, the camera was treated as if it was a nurse. So patients would create a simulation in which they were engaging with the nurse, asking questions, and then the nurse wearing the headset or watching this video would practice responding to the patients in this setting. So time was left in there for the nurse to practice his or her communication, and this is a lot less costly and time-consuming than using trained actors or robot patients or anything like that. And here are some examples of how it's done. Option 1 I told you about is where we have footage from multiple cameras stitched together to create a visual of the full scene. So you can see up there we have an image here of all of these GoPro cameras in a circle. And when I say stitched, it is quite literally stitching. So you'll see I've got an image of fabric there with the two patterns matched up. So that's what you want to do when you're combining your images, is find where the seams align and put them together there. You can get really, really high quality footage this way because obviously each camera is capturing its own image, but it can be quite labor intensive and requires a really powerful computer. I mean, aligning each one of those images is a lot of work, and then there's also quite a lot of color correction to consider if maybe one camera settings are slightly different to another. So it has its pros and cons. Option number 2 is to have one camera that records through multiple lenses at different angles, similarly to those Google Street View cars. So a pro here is that it's very easy to capture, edit, and share that video, but with cons, you have less control over the stitching. So when those two images are being brought together, they're usually being done by the computer inside of that camera. You can't necessarily make too many of these edits yourself, especially if you're using a consumer level camera like the ones that we have available in the Makerspace. So if you want to try this out yourself, you can go to this URL. If you're viewing this at any point in the future, I think I've just dated it with that Makers Workshop 2020, but you'll find Insta360 Studio and also some sample footage there. So you can try out downloading that footage, see what it's like to edit it and work with it. And also, if you go onto the Apple Store or Google Play, you'll find 2 apps for the 360-degree cameras that are available in the Makerspace. And you can book these cameras by going onto the Makerspace website. So if you are trying this out yourself and you want to record some 360-degree video, you need to think about how you're going to craft your story. For one thing, where are you going to put the camera? Everything is visible in a 360-degree video, so you can't hide anything off screen. How can you prompt the viewer to look around? The viewer might be focused on completely the wrong part of the screen, and there could be something happening behind them. How should you pace your story? So this is just a normal cinematic concern. How are you going to keep things moving? Also, what about lighting? Microphones, the crew, the director? Everything's going to be visible unless you're hidden somewhere. Once you've taken all those things into consideration, filmed your video, you want to think about how you're going to output it. So one option is VR style. This is when there are 2 side-by-side images and it's designed to be viewed through a headset. Another option is overcapture. So this means that you're recording 360-degree video, but you're exporting it as if it's a normal flat video. You might have heard something called point and shoot. These are our kinds of cameras or phones where you just point at an object and take a picture. Overcapture is sometimes called shoot first, point later. You capture everything and then decide what you want to point at. You can also add some fun different effects like Tiny Planet to make your footage look really unique. So when you want to try this out yourself, all you have to do is go to library.nuigalway.ie/makerspace, click on Book Equipment, and then navigate to the 360-degree cameras.